It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So Mitch McConnell has come out and said that there's no secret plan in the Senate to bail out the White House. No, he said that the White House and the Speaker's teams need to sit down and settle it. He's not going to help on the debt ceiling, not even a little bit. And my first thought is, I don't know, if you're a U.S. Senator, I mean, do you not want the country to do well? Isn't this one of those moments where you're kind of pushing both sides a little bit more than just saying I'm doing nothing? Or is this doing something? Here to answer that question, I've asked former U.S. Senator from Alabama, Doug Jones, to come share his thoughts on the whole debt ceiling debacle. Doug, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, it's always great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So am I too hard on Mitch McConnell? My view is he's just making it worse, or is this how McConnell motivates?
Well, I don't know if it's how he motivates. I mean, I've yet to figure that out with Senator Mitch, but I will say it is a complete abdication of his constitutional duties. The President of the United States, at least unless there is some constitutional challenge, which may be in the works if they don't get something out, the president can't raise the debt ceiling. Only the Congress of the United States can do that. So everybody, McCarthy and McConnell are putting this all on the president. But the fact of the matter is it's their duty to get this done and get it done in a way that the president will sign it. And so I really think that Mitch is just, I don't know why he feels like he can just sideline the entire Senate. That's not the way the Congress is supposed to operate. And they need to be in the middle of this. They can be very practical if they want to. But you are right about this, Rick. And that is that for anyone to basically say, I'm not going to get engaged in something that could have catastrophic consequences for the economy of the United States, catastrophic consequences for the global economy, much less the absolute full faith and credit of the United States of America, I think is shameful. I really think statements like that are shameful.
Yeah, I agree. But, here's the thing, and I see us in this moment, and maybe you'll agree or disagree because I really want your thoughts on this. I look at the Freedom Caucus and many in the House Republicans, as looking at this hostage situation as truly wanting to shoot the hostage. I believe there are people in the House that want to default, that want to touch the button, that want to blow this up and cause the chaos so they can blame Biden for it and a whole bunch of other ideological things. But then I see on Biden's side where you got to be the adult in the room and say, look, I'm not going to deal with children who are willing to destroy the country. At some point, we've got to end this. And there's talk around the 14th Amendment and him being able to do something there. There's part of me that goes, he just does that. So I want to get your thoughts. Is there a viable path to using the 14th Amendment to get rid of this or to set it aside to avoid this crisis? I'm curious.
Well, first of all, Rick, let me say I agree with you that there are those in the House and probably some in the Senate and Republicans across the country that would like to see this blow up. They want to see the economy tank. And that's a horrible thing to say. But I go back to 2020, and I remember specifically reading, and if you go back to the fall, spring and summer of 2020, what you saw was the beginning of inflation, the higher gas prices, and Republicans were gleeful. They were literally gleeful because you saw the president's numbers going down. You saw Democrats' chances in the midterms going down. And I remember specifically reading an article with a former member of Congress. He phrased it this way, because then you had the war in Ukraine started, and all of a sudden things started turning around. people started looking at democracy more than they did inflation, and Democrats' fortunes started to turn around. And this former Republican congressman said, you know what, with inflation and higher gas prices, we had everything going for us. And then the war started. Well, everything going for us, my God, this was hurting American families. It was hurting the working men and women in this country and the children that they're trying to raise. But he was more concerned and gleeful with the prospect that the economy tanking was helping them in the midterm. That I think is there. The 14th, and so I completely agree with you on that. Look into 2024. On the 14th Amendment, I think that's a really interesting legal concept, a legal theory that has not been tested yet. We haven't had to test it, Rick. The debt ceiling is routinely raised. I did it 2 or 3 times when I was in the Senate. When Donald Trump was president and the Republicans controlled the Senate, you didn't hear Mitch McConnell then abdicating his responsibilities. It's been fairly routine with some bumps in the road. But the way the Constitution reads, there may be the authority of the president to simply say to the Treasury, borrow more money and pay the debts and pay our bills, and let somebody challenge that. I think it's really interesting. I would not like to see that happen. What you really want to see is the Congress of the United States stepping up to do their dang job.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. I think the Republicans are so dug in, and I think McCarthy has sold his soul to be speaker to the point to where they're going to push this as far as they have to, and to keep him in the speakership, and that being self-serving. The country, be damned, our economy be damned, our role in the world be damned. I mean, I hear a lot of Republicans complaining about, Russia and China and India and Brazil. They're going to have their own currency and they're going to be the reserve currency. Well, how about we not screw that up and give them a reason to do that?
Right. No, you're absolutely right in that. And what I'm hoping is, I'm hoping that they can cut some kind of deal. I'm hoping that they would do. When I say cut some kind of deal, I still think the president is right to hold out for a clean debt ceiling increase. And a debt ceiling bill, and say, and tell the other side, tell the Republicans that, look, if everything you want to talk about, we will talk about that in good faith during the appropriations process, because that's where it is supposed to be.
Yep.
And the president should talk to folks about that. Democrats in Congress should talk to folks about that. That's the way legislation is done, not with a gun to your head. So that's number one. The second thing that I think I'm hoping that they might do, if they can't cut some kind of deal right now, is simply to do a CR, a continuing resolution. I don't like kicking the can down the road, but in this case, it might help to kick the can down the road so that discussions in the appropriations process can be going on simultaneously with the debt ceiling discussions. They wouldn't be separate, but they would at least be going on in the same time frame, and try to get it done all at once, something like that to see. Yeah. But what I go back to, Rick, is this. So many of the same Republicans voted for the very debt that they say now that they don't want to pay. They voted for it. They caused a lot of it by passing the 2017 tax bill. And it's really, I just can't understand any member of Congress totally abdicating their responsibilities.
Yeah, but I get your idea of passing a continuing resolution. My problem with that is we're still using the debt ceiling as a hostage tool. We're still using that, and I don't think that's what it should be. In every American household across this country, when the credit card bill comes due, you pay it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When your bills come due, you got to pay your bills, or your credit rating takes a dump, and you have all of the negative consequences that come with that. I don't understand why Congress can't behave in the same fashion that they talk about every working class family in America having to deal with.
No, I agree. I totally agree with that, Rick. The only thing I'm saying is this: people are dug in, and we're living in a different world now than we've ever done had in terms of the polarization and the digging in, and people really just going to war over things that they shouldn't be going to war over. And I'd rather see a CR like that where they can talk on similar tracks at the same time during the appropriations process, and hopefully the economy not get destroyed.
Right.
The alternative is for there not to be a debt ceiling raise, the economy go to hell in a handbag, with apologies to your wife, and that's going to be a real problem. That's going to be a major problem, and we don't want to see that happen. We've got to figure out a way to prevent that, and that doesn't mean giving in, but you've got to make sure that if there is any way possible to avoid that kind of economic collapse, we really need to do it, because in the end, it really won't matter who caused it, because people are going to be angry at everybody.
Yeah, no, and look, and the people at the bottom are going to be the ones who suffer the most. I understand that, and I get that. But there's a point at which you got to go. An adult has to step up and say, this kind of ticking bomb has to stop. It's not good for our position around the world. It's not good for our economy. It's not good for working people. It's something that should be abolished. Is there a way to get rid of this? Because again, I go back to, and this is the last place I want to finish on this, because there's part of me that goes, maybe if you do take this into the Supreme Court, which has been a very corporate court. Their decisions have come down on the side of the Chamber of Commerce much more often than not, that this would be a corporate decision to not hold the economy hostage, not screw over corporate America or working people. This could be and I hate using the win-win frame, but it could be one of those things where the sane people go, no, this is just bad. We should stop this.
No, look, I think it's a legitimate legal issue about the 14th Amendment and whether or not we can default when we've got the ability to go forward one way or another without legislation. I think that's a legitimate issue. I can't predict what the Supreme Court would do, because yes, it's been a very business-friendly court. At the same time, it has now become a very, very political court. And so if they, like I'm afraid that they have done in several cases in the last couple of years, decided it on politics rather than on the Constitution, then we could be in trouble.
Yeah, well, we'll see where that goes. I'm hoping Biden does what I want him to do and say, no, we're not giving in. We're not caving. We're going to pay our bills like adults. You children, sit down. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. I want to get your thoughts on this. I saw over the weekend the story coming out of New Hampshire. New Hampshire has become evidently the first state in the country to protect interracial marriage. Didn't think we had to do that. Now I see your state of Alabama. The Democrats in that state are abolishing the mandated LGBTQ caucus, the youth caucus, I guess the Hispanic caucus. What's going on? I mean, I thought this stuff was decided.
It should have been, Rick, and it is. It is really demoralizing for Democrats in Alabama to see what the party leadership is doing, and that's what I'm saying. This is not the Democratic Party per se. This is party leadership who is just continuing to try to keep control. They are angry because we made the party more inclusive back about 4 years ago, and they didn't like it. They felt like it took away their control and their power. And it's a small group. This is not a major group, but they have influence with others. And it's really too bad. I mean, the Democratic Party in Alabama is just like it is around the country. Should be a party with a big tent, that we're inclusive, that we celebrate the diversity, we celebrate the voices, we give opportunities for all people to participate. And what's happened in the Democratic Party of Alabama with this small group of the leadership is they've just done away with that. We spent a lot of time trying to get these caucuses into our bylaws so that we could bring in youth. I mean, Rick, but prior to 2019, when we really went to bat for the youth, especially. Out of the over 200 members of the State Democratic Executive Committee, there was only about 19 or 20 that were under the age of 35. Look what's happening around the country. Look what happened in Wisconsin. Look where things are headed. It is the youth of this country that are bringing the Democratic Party back. And for some reason, the Alabama Democratic Party leadership decides, they just don't know enough. We just don't care. We don't want to include, we want to be able to control them and not give them a voice. Same with the LGBTQ community, Hispanic, Asian Americans. It's really sad. A lot of people are angry about this. And so I'm hoping it will not stand.
Yeah, it's, look, there's a lot of things that I don't agree with on the extremes. But everyone should have a voice, and the Democratic Party is supposed to be that big tent wherever. So this seems to go against that ethos of the part of the big tent party. So I thought it was interesting that coming out of your state.
Well, the irony is, we Democrats have been complaining consistently over the last couple of years about efforts from the Republican Party to suppress dissenters, to cancel people like Tinkerbell when they speak out against you. We have been speaking out against Republican efforts to suppress voters, making it harder to vote, not giving people the voice. And now in Alabama, this leadership of the party has done the exact same thing with the very constituencies that are helpful to the Democratic base and helpful to the party. It is beyond something that people can understand. It's just beyond words as to why they're doing this. And it is just an old guard wanting to hang on to control and not releasing it. We see it, Rick, we see this in institutions across the country. We see it in law firms and accounting firms and medical practices. When the founders of the firm and that really built the firm decide that they just don't want the younger generation coming in and telling them what to say. They would rather burn the house down. And that's what's happening in Alabama. They have decided that they are likely to burn the house down before they would relinquish control. We'll see what happens.
We'll see. Doug, I appreciate the time. Keep up the good work. I look forward to having you back again real soon.
All right, Rick. Great to be with you as always, buddy.
Thanks so much. Our good friend, former Alabama Senator Doug Jones. Going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people on the talk.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The old factory towns in America's heartland have been taking a beating. Thing is, though, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The new CHIPS bill that got passed will bring jobs back home and has already resulted in big announcements of major new factories opening. The American Recovery Package has allowed cities and counties to hire new police officers and firefighters and start rebuilding their communities again. We're finally turning things around after 40 years of screwing over working people. But will we keep moving in the right direction? That's our choice.
We are AFGE. We support our nation's military and our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders and provide services to our nation's seniors. Across the country and here in Washington, D.C., the American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I'm still hoping Biden acts the adult in the room. And as I said, at some point, this debt ceiling thing got to go. The time to argue about spending is before you spend it. That seems logical to me. But it is what it is. Let's go to the phones. Got David in Milwaukee on line one. David, how are you?
Good evening, Rick. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Anytime. What's on your mind, brother?
So in reference with Mr. Doug Jones in regards to just raising the debt ceiling, what have you. The problem is this, and this is where you got the brass tacks hitting. Now, everyone talks about the national debt like at $31 trillion and change. It's going to be 32 in I don't know, probably a little past summer. We have to look at the unfunded liabilities. And I suggest to people that your listening audience go to the U.S. national debt clock, and you will see that we have $187 trillion of unfunded liabilities.
Yeah, that's if hold on real quick. That's if today everybody who is owed anything cashes in at this moment. That means you know 20-year-olds who are in the workforce, if their Social Security were to come due today, it would be what it is. A lot of these payments are decades into the future, just so we're clear.
Right. No, okay. Fine. We'll expect, but the number is astronomical, is my bigger point. And I do believe, and now with interest rates going up higher, and they're going to still continue to go up because we still have inflation, the interest alone yearly on it now is up to $560 billion just on interest.
Yeah, and
that's paying for that. That's paying for nothing.
You're right, but it's not paying for nothing. A lot of the money that was spent was investments in our infrastructure, investments in education. They were investments that were made that are paying dividends to the money being loaned out to we the people. I mean, this is a complex cycle here, David, and you understand this. I know you do.
Right. I understand that portion, but there is a point of no return, and we really do. We do have to factor in. We have to rein in spending somewhat. We have to.
Yeah.
And we also have to factor in that, okay, you know what? There's needs and there's wants. And we have to prioritize what those needs and wants are.
We don't disagree on this, David. We don't disagree.
Right.
We don't disagree that we should be spending money judiciously. And I hope we don't disagree that we should be raising revenue. The fact of the matter is we have created the largest billionaire class in the history of civilization with the most massive redistribution of wealth from working people to a billionaire class that was created from 80 onward. So, I mean, a lot of our problems are the fact that we aren't bringing revenue in, David.
Well, so if you look at, this is what I would say to you in regards to that. So keep in mind, if you're a wealthy person, money can move anywhere it wants to. Wealthy people will move to where they know it's going to be accessible.
But it wasn't always that way, David. And this is where I've always been a supporter of putting capital borders up. If we're going to have borders with people, if we're going to have borders for goods, we should have borders for dollars. We tore that down during the 80s. Again, more Reaganomics. This idea that monies can move across borders, where we had strong capital borders in the past, which made it so that people didn't move out of the country and hide their money in offshore accounts.
And to your point, I mean, we are a global economy now.
We've always been a global economy, David, always.
Yeah. Well,
we fought a revolutionary war against the East India Trading Company. Come on, David. We've always been a global
I understand
company.
where you're getting at. Okay, so what I mean by that is, Rick, is that if you look at the world population as far as all the different economies in the world, we're much more synchronized with parts of the world that we had no access to back when the United States was, just starting off. That's my bigger point. So we have a lot of industries that are throughout all over the world. Could be Africa, Asia, what you name it.
I agree.
And so, so we do have that. But the flip side is, Rick, is that what I'm worried about is that, with the amount of money that we are spending currently, I look at it from the standpoint, now I reside in Wisconsin, and, there was concern that, because we had tax cut in our states under Scott Walker. People, I'm sure, remember that.
Got 30 seconds.
Gloom and doom. Right. And at the end of the day, our state of Wisconsin actually has a surplus of $7 billion. The reason being because Wisconsin actually was attracting businesses back to the state that were kind of shunning us before. So there's a happy medium. You have to make it where you're competitive, and you want growth, and you want to bring business to your location. In this case, I want to bring it back to the United States as much as possible.
I hear you, David. I appreciate the call, man. Good stuff. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Look, a lot of that I agree with, some of it not so much. But at the end of the day, here's where the mind goes. In this moment, the debt ceiling fight, pay your bills. The time to fight overspending was before you spent the money. That's, for me, that's the North Star. It doesn't get any simpler than that. But appreciate the thoughts. Quick break, right back.
The good news is America is coming back. More jobs, more building, more of what makes our country great. And more cities and towns, more small businesses, and big corporations are choosing the highly skilled, highly trained members of the IBEW to do the work. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is committed to doing the job right, on time, and safely. America is making a big comeback, and the IBEW is proud to do our part.
We've been farming the same farm for 3 generations, and it's just always been where I've wanted to be. Any farmer you talk to in Montana will tell you that the climate is definitely changing. The weather is way more extreme. We went from the wettest year we've ever had to this year with the worst drought we've had since the 80s. We have done everything we can to keep water going, but it got close to running out. Farmers can't afford the cost of climate change. Congress has to get this done.
Before we close the program, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and to share a little bit about why we do what we do. At the Rick Smith Show, we believe that media today is almost entirely controlled by corporate greed. So we have now 24-hour news channels. But instead of 24 hours of news, what we get is 1 hour repeated 24 times, and with tons of commercials creating obscene amounts of profits. Information once presented as a public service has now become a private commodity. So when lies make money, lies are what we get. We get a corporate-controlled rage machine feeding us anger and hate, trying to convince us that our problems are right, left, or red, blue, when they are and always have been up, down, the wealthiest 1% versus the rest of us. Our goal is to be an alternative to that machine, not as a news show with a fancy journalist out front, but as a talk show run by a union truck driver and a team of working-class heroes just like you. Everything we do, both what we get right and what we get wrong, is dedicated to advancing the interests of America's working families. No corporate ad buys, no think tanks, no focus groups, no talking points. We are media by working people, for working people. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time.